Today, MLB moves their All-Star game to Colorado. There's a little bit, though, more to the story that we will get into. And Fauci can't explain why Texas COVID cases are dropping. In fact, he can't explain really anything, but somehow he keeps getting paid. We've got a lot coming up for you today, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by two people who may get me in trouble today. Elijah Schaefer, host of Slightly Offensive, which you can find on BlazeTV, also on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to it.
Yeah, and I think we all just came together and we felt a unity moment of our general hatred for Dr. Fauci right there.
Yes.
All of us were just like, we looked at each other, we knew.
Yes, we looked at each other, expletives were used. Off air, okay, you're welcome, management. Also joined by Eric July, BlazeTV contributor, also known as Young Rippa 59 on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to him as well.
5'9".
He just, I know, I love that, it's so random. Young Rippa 5'9", who, and he just said he got done doing a 13-hour stream yesterday.
Yeah, last night, and then we did the show this morning, so I've been kicking. I'm on like, what, 4 hours maybe? Got something in the cup. It's not like spiked or anything, but I got some in the cup to keep me up.
Spiked with some caffeine.
Dude, you should teach Biden a thing or two about actually working. It's like, it's sad when a BlazeTV contributor works harder than the President of the United States. I'm just saying.
All right, so let's get into the headlines of the day. MLB, Major League Baseball, has moved their All-Star game. I know we brought you this story yesterday from Georgia because, well, Eric, right. Can you please just tell us how bad you feel about the Jim Crow 2.0 voter ID laws, voter restriction laws? I mean, as a black person today, if you lived in Georgia, you wouldn't be able to vote. Yeah,
somehow I'd be able to have to provide my ID to do literally everything else, but can't do it to vote.
Right. So
that's suppression. But I mean, I need to go fly out to Georgia. If I want to go fly to Georgia right now, I have to provide my ID, so I guess it's travel suppression going on by way of these airlines who are requiring ID, yet ironically having so much to say about this subject, American Airlines.
Yeah, let's get into that. But let me first give you Major League Baseball moving their All-Star game to Colorado, which, you know, people are like, oh, thank God they're moving it out of Georgia. They are so awful. Well, Colorado has voter ID laws. And by the way, they're like way less diverse than Georgia. What are they, like 75% white?
Maybe like 84%
Are
white.
they? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say
super white. Okay.
Literally the only state where the people are white, and during the winter the whole like state is white. Like everything is literally
here you go.
The whitest state possible.
86.9% white and 4.6% black. Georgia is 60% white and 32.6%
black. Way to
black.
take it to those damn racists by going to that might be the I don't know, maybe Montana or something else.
Yeah, I was like, have you been to South Dakota?
Maybe one of those just a little whiter, but that's pretty white.
It's pretty white. And by the way, Colorado also has restrictions on giving food and drink, water included, yes, as gifts when it comes to people standing in line waiting to vote. Which, by the way, can we talk about that for a second? Because this is the dumbest thing for people to be mad about. I'm like, first of all, who goes to the polls and is like, I'm very offended unless I get offered free food and drink. Like, what do you want, an hors d'oeuvre tray? I don't understand these people.
Snacks.
Only in America can you expect and be really upset and feel oppressed that you are not being given free food and drink when you go to vote. Oh, and by the way, that's not even actually true because they can have water stations that are self-serve. You just have to move your own lazy ass to go get the water. Or people who are not affiliated with campaigns can also be offering things, right?
Yeah. And you can just be 100, a little more than, I guess 101 feet out, and everything's good to go out there anyway. So what are we getting mad at? Well, looking at that was weird because I saw the whole, I was reading up on Colorado this morning and some of the laws. In a lot of cases, they can be more strenuous than what they are actually.
Less early voting times.
Less early voting times with their whole voting laws. What it does is it goes to show that it's about narrative, it's about rhetoric. I never believed that the MLB of all people even gave a damn about this, but you know, when you go from, I guess, being the top sport in America as it was, it's America's sport, right? At one point back in the gap, and then it's, falling down. I don't know if it's even behind hockey these days. they're just throwing crap at the wall, hoping that it sticks as a Hail Mary, like, okay, please come watch our game. Now, clearly they don't know their actual demographic that watches the games right now. But it never was about what the law stated. I said, I believe, on the show here, I don't remember if I got a chance to, but when you hear pundits talk about this, I was watching Sports. I called my name, Shannon Sharp, over there at Fox Sports was talking about this. And I'm sitting here hearing him rattle off about how oppressive this was. He was commending the MLB. And never once did he actually specifically reference the law itself. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of pundits do. Mm-hmm. And even, Joe Biden, hell, was it the Washington Post or the Washington Times? I couldn't remember. They had to admit that
the Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios.
4 Pinocchios for lying about it, because even the lawyers couldn't be like, oh, you kind of reaching right now. But it goes to show, like, they just repeat everything it is that they had said, and they were just waiting on that. So it didn't matter what was in the law. That didn't matter. They had that prepared, that they were going to call that racist voter suppression, Jim Crow 2.0 or whatever it is, because they are agenda and narrative and rhetoric driven. As I say, you cannot reason with these types. It's logic. It doesn't matter. These people, even their pundits, will sit there and pontificate. They're screaming at you, talking about, oh, this is the greatest thing because they're moving out. But they can't express actually what the hell was the problem. They never, I'm pretty sure you saw me post it on Twitter. I was like, can someone reference, I see everybody's up in arms, but can I get like a specific just reference to the law as to what's actually the problem? No. Nobody took the bait.
No.
Because maybe there's nothing there.
No, it's just about using black people as zoo animals. And I'm just going to say that this is, the media likes to say, I saw a tweet from this woman who was like, everyone here should go into Black Twitter and just observe and watch and see how their feelings are responding to this, voter ID law.
Hold on, is there a special
Black
entry
Twitter
to Black Twitter?
Well, there actually is a Black Twitter.
All black people have like this direct message.
Like how do you?
But it's like
we're literally every black person on Twitter is just.
Yeah, well, but I was looking at that. I'm going, this is like a white woman treating black people like they're animals. Like, just sit back and observe. Yeah, sit back and observe.
It was a white woman. What do you mean?
Eric, it's like pet with 2 fingers. Just be gentle. And you see this where it's like it's a lot of people online talking about how this is oppressive and suppresses black people. And when you comes down to it and you look at the state, you look at what's going on, the majority of black people actually support voter ID laws. The majority of people, Democrat and Republicans, support this. It's nonsensical of all countries, developed countries that is, in the world that would require voter ID. We're like one of the few, if not the only country that actually has no restrictions on this. And we just let people go in and vote. In California, it's so bad that I once went in and said, can I change where I'm going to vote, change my address, and change my political party without an ID? And they said yes. So I could go in, I can even change where I vote and my home address without any proof or verification. I mean, these laws leave room for fraud. They leave room, I can't believe we can still say that word, but they leave room to actually manipulate the system. And the sad part is in all of this, and I know this is like beating a dead horse, but this weird presumption that black people are too stupid to get an ID. It's like, so what? You think black people aren't allowed to drink alcohol? You think black people don't like to drink? You think black people don't want to buy tobacco? You think black people don't want to, go to games? They can't fly? Like, what do you think?
Drive?
Yeah, I mean, like, what do you
drive? Yeah.
So yeah, black people are too dumb to drive. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And this is it's insulting to me too, because these are Americans. And so you're telling me there's a whole swath of the American public that's too stupid to just get an ID? Then let's talk about the system of getting an ID. Maybe that's where the complication's at.
Yeah, and so I want to bring that up because you bring up a great point, Elijah, and you alluded to it as well, Eric, when you were mentioning all of the airlines. So because it really is. These companies are creating this, or I should say the left really, and the companies in conjunction are creating this standard that is absolutely impossible to keep, right? Like, you cannot live by the standards that they are creating, which we see in all of these companies who have all come out and said that they support MLB's decision to move their game over to Colorado because Georgia is they're so racist, they're so horrible, they don't like secure elections. And you see all of these freaking airlines who have all come out and look, here's United. They left a statement, our mission to connect people and unite around the world. We believe that one of the most effective ways to do this is to engage in the democratic process, which begins with voting. And by the way, there's zero credible evidence of widespread fraud. I love that they say they use the word credible. Zero credible evidence. That is something that is used by the left all the time. Credible only means exactly what they want it to mean at that particular time. We believe that leaders in both parties should work together to protect the rights of eligible voters by making it easier and more convenient for them to cast a ballot and have it counted. Because what you want, guys, is for voting, which is one of the most important processes in the country, you really want that to be really, really super convenient for all of the lazy people who don't know what they're talking about to just make sure that they can vote, because you don't want people who are actually invested in the system.
I know most people don't agree with my position on the systems in this regards. Anyway, I know I cringe every time I hear people talk about the democratic process and civic duties and all of that. It makes me want to throw up all over the table every time I hear that. But the reality of the situation is this: when we talk about democracy or this concept of voting, the fact that we discuss this as if this is something that moves the needle towards, a freer, prosperous society is complete nonsensical, and it's ahistorical. And I think I'm less about taking the angle of, ID voting, and more about taking the angle, what the hell are y'all talking about? Like, we look at this and fundamentally there's a problem that all of these stupid people get to decide who's leading and ruling over everybody. There's a problem with that. So as we sit here and rag on these idiots who get to, with a lot of power, whether it be in your travel and everything else, who get to sit here and just lie and rattle things off, well, their employees get to vote. The people that they're trying to appeal to get to vote. And this is the ironic thing, that we're talking about all of this as people be dishonest, be disingenuous, and lie about this specific law. Well, all of those people also get to vote theoretically. So I'm trying to kill this whole notion of the democratic process and all that. It gets me so good. I just start cringing every time I hear that, because that's my issue. This is why I'm always talking about, hey, let's pull the rug from under Nancy Pelosi's desk and have her not have a job. See, but what people are starting to see is literal fascism. When we talk about the mixture of, I know fascism, but believe it or not, guys, it doesn't mean guys with R's next to their name saying mean things. It's not what fascism is. It's actually, you can read the doctrine of fascism. It's out there for free, and you'll understand that it is the collective. It is the merging of corporate with state, which is what exactly we have seen probably more than anything in recent history with the COVID-19, as well as leading into this bullcrap. There's a problem, and if Republicans, be it libertarians or what have you, I don't think sitting here trying to protect this institution is the way to go. I think we need to be trying to look at how do we remove as much power from them as we can, because I'm just being completely honest. I don't think just trying to get more people access to put a ticket in is going to be the result. Sounds like that's what got us in this mess.
Yeah, Elijah, I want to get your thoughts. So it wasn't just United, Delta, American Airlines and Southwest Airlines, they all released statements about how Georgia was so restrictive, alluding to
did anybody actually point to anything direct in their comment?
Of course not. No,
they were all vague, and I think that I pointed two things out. Number one, the obvious, like, hey, airlines, I had to show an ID just to get into the terminal, not even to get onto your plane. Then I had to bring a ticket and double confirm my ID with a scanned barcode, and then also sit in an assigned seat that I couldn't move upon takeoff. On top of that, from companies that will yell at you and ban you from their services for having your mask a few millimeters beneath the tip of your nose, it's very interesting for them to be talking about, totalitarian policies, right? They say to, put your mask back on in between bites, unless you're in first class, of course, because the rich always get a pass. But on top of that, when you look at all these companies pretending to virtue signal and talk about these things, I think they're just scared. I think they saw an emotional reaction in 2020 where there was no logic in the reaction to the George Floyd death. There was, we're still in the trial. We still don't know fully what happened per se. I mean, it looks, toxicology says George Floyd, died of a drug overdose or whatever, but on top of this, it's like you saw a year of destruction, of mayhem. The COVID-19 pandemic, there's still no logic in the way that we've approached this. With the masks and the lockdowns, there's no logic on the table anymore. It's all about pull and emotion. And so these CEOs, I think, have copped out to the corporate power and to the money and said, look, we fear what the Democrats, what all these people can do. And so if anything goes against their agenda, we're just going to go against it too. Because when we try to, if we try to go against their agenda, they end up destroying the whole country. And so it's like, why not get on board with the Democrats? Because if you try to oppose them, it destroys your whole business. And that's what's happened. And so everyone's afraid of them.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I don't think that you're supposed to negotiate with terrorists.
Never.
So, all right, we've got more to come. We've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Omega XL. So if you are one of many Americans, you just live in constant pain. What you don't realize is the underlying cause is probably inflammation, which you got to get to the root cause, that inflammation, or else it can cause permanent damage. Now, Omega XL is backed by 35 years of clinical research, and it attacks the inflammation that is causing your pain. It's not going to be like the pain relievers or the topical rubs that you rub on, and wherever you have the problem and you rub it on and you're like, this feels really good for about 10 minutes, and then it wears off, and then you're in pain again. Omega XL is actually going to neutralize the inflammation that causes the painful, stiff joints and muscles. It is an essential fatty acid combination from the pristine waters of New Zealand. You got to get started if you are in pain. This can be life-changing for you. Order Omega XL now and get a second bottle for free. It is at omegaxl.com/news. That is omegaxl.com/news. Get that second bottle for free. omegaxl.com/news. Back in a minute. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci, a good friend of the program, Dr. Anthony Fauci, also happens to be, just like the biggest con man of all time in American history. Also, the highest paid federal employee. I like to remind people of that. Every time we see a clip of Dr. Fauci, this man makes more than the President of the United States. He makes $420,000 per year.
It's pretty good.
I would say it's, you know what? If you want to give me $420,000 a year to just say whatever the hell I felt like saying on one particular day and then say something completely opposite the next day and there would be no blowback, I would totally take that job.
People have lied for a cookie, Children make up lies every day just to steal a snack. For $400K, hey, he's doing a good job.
That's a gig. Great job, Anthony Fauci. Can we good job. All right, so Anthony Fauci on MSNBC, he was asked, which, by the way, I think this is a great indication that their narrative is failing. Their narrative is failing. They are losing the narrative battle here. The more states that open up and say, screw your COVID protocols, we're opening up. Anthony Fauci was actually asked about places like Texas, and, the COVID cases are dropping, by the way. Even after the state lifted all of their restrictions, we were told that we were all going to die. We were all going to perish in big flames in Texas when everyone got COVID. Anthony Fauci actually asked about that on MSNBC. Here's that.
It can be confusing because you may see a lag and a delay because often you have to wait a few weeks before you see the effect of what you're doing right now. There are a lot of things that go into that. When you say that they've had a lot of activity on the outside, like ball games, I'm not really quite sure. It could be they're doing things outdoors. It's very difficult to just one-on-one compare that. You just have to see in the long range. I hope they continue to tick down. If they do, that would be great. But there's always the concern when you pull back on methods, particularly things like indoor dining and bars that are crowded, you can see a delay and then all of a sudden tick right back up. We've been fooled before by situations where people begin to open up, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, several weeks later, things start exploding on you. So we got to be careful. We don't prematurely judge that.
It's interesting because I don't hear him cite any
exploding
place.
On you. That was a very loaded statement. They just start exploding all over you.
Where was I want to know where the receipts are on that. Like, what is he referring? He can't be referring to Florida.
Nope.
Remember when California locked down and then things got worse? Remember when Canada, South Africa were early on to adopt masks and things shot up? Remember Israel, even with their vaccine passports, there's still problems there. I have not seen any correlation between mask wearing and lockdowns in and actually lessening the load of cases in the country. Now, YouTube could take this down and could say that, well, that goes against our standards here on COVID. And I'm like, yeah, that's my point. Your standards are not based in truth. Your standards are just based in narrative. And we actually are bringing the truth here. And I want someone, and I know you're on this boat too, and so are you. I'm begging for someone to just disprove that. Like, I just, please prove to me that wearing masks and lockdowns stop COVID, because then I will put a mask on and I will go into lockdown for 2 weeks and we'll stop this thing right now.
Well, it's interesting because even today I saw that the White House, their narrative was, well, just sacrifice a little longer. And it's like, you guys told us at the beginning of this that it was going to be 2 weeks that we would all have to sacrifice and everything would be good again. And everyone did that. I mean, we were here. But, like for the most part, the general population, businesses shut down. People couldn't feed their families. There are a lot of people who still don't have their jobs back because of what happened. How much more would you like for us to sacrifice with absolutely nothing to show that it actually works?
And then when you do get a random controlled trial, such as the Danish study, they act like it's not even a thing because it doesn't prove what they say that it's supposed to prove. So they have to use studies with like models and mannequins and stuff like that to show you that, oh, well, see, it works. See, look at this 3D deal that we did.
And by the way, once this goes through the population, the way that it's going to, the way that like every virus does, then they're going to say, oh, look, COVID cases are down nationwide. It's because of all the protocols.
And I think that's why they were so adamantly against the lifting of a lot of these restrictions, because what it does is it defeats that narrative. Yep. So the earlier that people start to reopen, despite there being like mandatory vaccine passports or anything like that, if they don't get a hold of it now, then what happens is what's happening right now. Well, Fauci is left to be like, it's hard to say because Texas and Mississippi and the cases are trending down, despite the fact that the other spots that have had these strenuous lockdowns, these mask mandates, and what have you, are having the opposite effect. It's almost as if that's not actually going to solve this particular problem. Me personally, I think they know that. I think they understand that. I feel like there's at least enough, it's long enough in terms of the year, and we have enough different countries, and we see how they react, in which we know that it's not necessarily attributed to what they say that it is. Could be due to a multitude of different things why spots like Asia. I was reading some study and suggestion where a guy said, well, because they had already been like immune to certain like coronaviruses and other stuff, maybe potentially, not to say that it did, they were testing the hypothesis that there was like some sort of cross immunity. And that's why spots like Asia were dealing with it a lot better than what it was that we had. They won't concede that that's a potential thing. Like maybe it has nothing to do with the mask or the lockdowns or anything like that. Maybe the immune system has to do exactly what it's going to do. And depending on the health status of certain areas like America, where we're pretty chubby out here, we may be dealing with it a lot worse than a lot of other countries. To them, that can never be on the table. It has to be, okay, well, the government or the state and its officials said that this must happen, and therefore, that has to get the result that they say that it will get. So anything that happens, be it Texas or Mississippi, that seems to prove to the contrary, definitely here, that just blows up their narrative and they hate it.
Yeah, I was going to say, with all this narrative going on, one of the reasons why we keep hearing about the new double mutant, triple mutant variant that now attacks children, that's, the like Indian virus.
X-Men virus.
Well, you posted it, and it's like double, triple, stacked, 3 shots, 4 shots. I don't know what we're drinking, but when it comes down to it, why are they speaking like this? When you say they're losing the narrative, one recent study that I read showed that from 2016 on to 2020, the amount of trust that Democrats put into the mainstream media actually increased between like 15 to 21%, I think. It's hard to read the graph, but it was like up to 73% of Democrats trust the traditional media. Really? It went down and crashed from around like 40% down to 10% for Republicans. So Republicans aren't consuming the corporate media. We don't believe the media. All we do is bash it. So the media is going to hyper cater towards these left-wing psychonaut mask Nazis that are out there just digesting and saying, teacher, government, tell me what to do, tell me how to think. I rejected God and logic. I believe that my bachelor's degree in feminist studies makes me superior to someone with a blue collar job, and I'm sitting around here, just tell me how to think. And they're all in line, and they're 3/4 of them believe it. That's half the country. They know who they're speaking to. They know that they can keep enough people in line that they can continue to push their agenda down our throats. Because the problem is that the right is thin-skinned, we are weak. Like today, which I know we're going to get into, but with the COVID passports being banned in Texas, those COVID passports being banned in Texas, he didn't sign an executive order that actually banned them. He just banned them from the government enforcing them, but it still opens up the door for all private businesses to enforce them. And so it's like you keep giving these weak policy after weak policy and fighting them back with just like, well, we're going to kind of open up, but we're going to leave mask mandates to private businesses instead of saying businesses cannot require you to cover your face with things.
I would disagree with that. Me personally, I think that needs to be the case. It just should have been the case earlier on. You know, like the problem is that when you half-ass, hopefully they don't have to bleep that after the fact, but if you half-tell it, you have to like then try to walk it back, which is what Abbott has done. If you take the principal position at the beginning, you don't have to worry about that. That's been my issue with the Republicans and a lot of them in terms of getting us to this point, is that when it's time to value liberty, when it's actually time to value freedom, when things get hard, you have to do it then. You can't say, well, I value liberty. Wait a minute, here's a pandemic. Shut it all down. You can't do that, because if you give them the inch, what happens? They take the mile. So you get these Clay Jenkins or whatever is behind is, and you get guys like that, you open the door for him. And this is why I will not let Abbott make it for what he did, because he set the precedent. So the key here, at least in my honest opinion, when it comes to combating these idiots, is that we have to remain principled, but do it. Don't apologize for it, and do it early. Stop waiting around and get on the offense once in your life. Like, get on the offense. I appreciate the idea of actually valuing liberty and showing the people that I guess are your constituents, show them that you value liberty instead of just talking it. And then at the end of the day, all you end up doing is giving the state, more power, saying like, well, we had to do it because of compromise and stuff like that. We've seen that the right do that on so many different issues. Gun rights being probably the main one. Is that, we need this just right now because it'll give them to shut up, and we don't move away from absolute socialism, or nanny state or daddy state. We move, or we don't move away from it. We move closer to it because we continue to compromise. The left controls all of the conversation, and that's what's happening right now. You see them do that. Yeah.
All right, we've got more to come. Woo! I think these guys need some cold water or something. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So in case you guys have not heard, Patriot Mobile has just expanded their coverage. So if you have not yet dumped whoever else you're using who's going to charge you way too much money, and by the way, donate a portion of that money to left-leaning causes that you work very hard to fight against, now is the time. Patriot Mobile does not ever send a penny to the left. They will not silence you. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. When we say vote with your money, this is what we're talking about. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. All of these big corporations, these woke corporations who want to take your money and then demand that MLB move out of Georgia to Colorado, even though Colorado has more stringent voter ID laws, don't do business with them. Do business with Patriot Mobile. You can switch very easily. It's 2021. It's very easy. You can keep your own phone number if you want to. You can get a new one if you want. You can bring your own phone or get a new one. You can get multi-line discounts as well. You got to go to patriotmobile.com/news. Veterans and first responders, by the way, you are going to save even more. Make sure you take advantage of that. This month, you will get free Premier activation. They're going to set that phone up for you and give you a special gift if you use offer code NEWS. It's only at patriotmobile.com/news. That is patriotmobile.com/news. Back in a minute. We were having the conversation, Eric, you were talking about the narrative and that the government is pushing. And it's so evil. It's so cunning what they're doing, making people so afraid that they have no choice but to just, government, please tell me what to do. Just do it for me, please. I'm too scared to live my life. A great example of this on the internet, a viral video of, I believe it's an Uber Eats it's a food delivery driver who's trying to make a delivery in an elevator. And a young woman looks young, looks to be healthy. She says she's immune compromised in the video, but I mean, just like cannot function, so afraid and upset, so scared that this woman is standing next to her. They're both wearing masks. Check it out.
My girl here wants me to come out of the elevator so she can come out of the elevator.
Because it's a small space, we're supposed to maintain social distancing. I don't understand why you can't just politely step out to allow me out of the elevator when I asked you nicely while you have been wearing your mask.
You didn't ask me nicely. You said get the out the elevator.
I said that after you refused
no.
to get out. You have a giant box.
My girl.
No, look at you.
But my girl, hold on, my girl. You want to stand in the elevator with me and catch it? Like, you're not making sense, and you might as well get off at your floor.
I'm trying to get out, but I can't come close to you. Do you understand that I have an extremely compromised immune system? You are a delivery person incorrectly wearing the mask inside of a big
incorrectly worn, guys? Is this incorrectly worn?
It wasn't like that the whole time.
And she leaves anyway. She's like, gets out.
I mean, it's a little bit sad. You look at that and you're like, this woman clearly has problems. But guys, if you are that scared from this virus, I don't care if we're talking about at the beginning. I don't care if we're talking about right now. Stay home. Stop trying to impose all of these ridiculous restrictions on everyone else because you are scared of the virus. I don't get it. I don't get it.
People are when I look at that type of response, call them, I know I say they're in a cult. People think that I'm being harsh, but look, man, that's how they react. These people are crazy. And unfortunately, the state has been the one that's kind of incentivized this sort of bad behavior and got people all just scared just to beat people. Like the fact that you just go into an elevator or anything for that matter, because we've seen videos of just mass cultists going completely crazy. Yeah. But going anywhere and you see another person and the immediate response, and this is why when Gina Carano said what she said, I wasn't thinking politics. I was looking at like the mask thing when people got mad at Gina Carano for saying people turning on their own citizens and stuff. And we saw that. I look at stuff like this. Because you've seen people maybe in the grocery store start ganging up on people, jacking their stuff because one of the guys isn't wearing a mask. Like, this is crazy to where you just automatically assume that everybody is just a carrier of the virus. Right. And not only that, you'd be getting it and you're going to die. And just to be so emotionally distraught at that shows that, I mean, maybe you won't got it all upstairs, and I'll concede that point certainly. But seriously, like, that's not how rational human beings function. But think about how you function prior to the state telling you to get upset or get distraught or get scared or something. You did this like it was nothing. People went around and you knew that you were under the threat, possibly potentially.
Immunocompromised, I'm sure she went to the grocery store during flu season.
Absolutely, without a mask, probably without a mask, you know, and it was no big deal. But now the state told you, well, you need to be scared. Granted, the survival rate for this is crazy high, but you need to be scared. Like, that's what I've been attempting to try to get people to understand. Like, think about how irrational, not just you're acting right now, but just compare and contrast to how you approached viruses and potential illnesses before. Yeah. Does this make any sense? It doesn't.
No, but fear is how you control people. And I think when we've looked at this entire madness over the last year, I mean, the fact that people were able to convince people that this pandemic was as bad as it is, the fact that they were able to convince people that BLM was a peaceful organization, the fact that they're able to still convince people that Joe Biden is the most popular president in U.S. history. These three things together show me that the elites know what we know, and that's the majority of people are dumb and asleep. And when people are dumb, fear is the best tool of manipulation. Fear of losing money, fear of losing your health, fear of being ostracized, fear of being pushed out of society, etc. And, you know, as we've seen over the decades, the dumbing down of our country, you know, there's a reason why, for instance, they don't push assimilation with new immigrants, because they don't want to create a unified culture of thought and of logic. There's a reason why our public schools haven't been getting the funding that they should have, why they've condemned, you know, school choice and homeschooling, and while at the same time pushing anti-American, anti-logic doctrine in the schools, why they condemn faith and reason, these types of things, and why they've taken over our universities, because they want people to be controllable. And that's the key thing about the United States. When the British came in 1812, when they invaded us, in that war, one of the things that they always pointed out is that we were an unruly bunch. We were uncivilized, hard to control, right? I mean, they had lost the revolution. They couldn't control us because we have a wild nature to us. We like our own houses, our own families, our own guns. This is what we like. But as they've moved us into cities, as the Industrial Revolution turned into the technological revolution, as people have become, no longer reliant on the land, they don't know their constitution, they don't know anything, they're just pawns. And that's what we're seeing is we're the minority, we're the resistance, but these people are a dime a dozen. They are all over the country, and they love to be controlled because they're weak, pathetic people. And I'm just saying they're pathetic. And that's what they're looking for, looking for someone to bring some sense into their life. And the government says, like we know right now, right? Kamala Harris is on the I'm from the government tour and here to help you. So, I mean, and Ronald Reagan said that famously. That's the most dangerous thing that could be said. If the government says they're here to help, that's the most dangerous phrase you can hear. And our government right now is on an I'm here to help you tour. And that's the state. I mean, if you need help from the government, I'm not talking about temporary, some assistance. If you're looking to the future, I need the government for my future, then you are in a very bad place in your life and as a country as a whole.
All right, we've got more to come. Back in a minute.
That was a little seductive. I like that one. Yeah.
Preach it. Preach it.
We'll give it to Steven.
Black Lives Matter activist is reminding us, this kind of goes with what you were saying, Elijah, reminding us that they are not actually like peaceful and, well, mostly peaceful. I mean, the buildings could be burning down. But it's
like the mostly peaceful Capitol riot?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wait, no, that wasn't. Well, those were white people, so please. They are threatening now, at least this activist, and I got to tell you, I don't believe that Black Lives Matter as a whole is like in disagreement with this. They say all hell is going to break loose if George Floyd's murderer is not sentenced. Watch.
If George Floyd's murderer is not sentenced, just know that all hell is going to break loose. Don't be surprised when buildings are on fire. Just saying.
I mean, if anyone is old enough to have lived through this past summer, I don't think anyone would be surprised when buildings were on fire. But I know that the courthouse, at least, believes what she is saying because they have a high fence that they've installed around the courthouse. I know the security is huge. There's a huge police presence there, and they are basically waiting on pins and needles. I think probably because they know that they overcharged this man, I would argue on purpose, to create more racial division, to create more of this narrative that black people are oppressed. I think that the Attorney General, I think that the city officials knew exactly what they were doing when they said, yeah, second-degree murder, we're definitely going to charge him with this, knowing he was going to get off, knowing what that would create with Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
That's going to be an interesting take because I don't know if something else lower is going to stick. You know what I mean? And if it does, then they'll probably still end up being mad.
They'll still be mad that he didn't
the maximum of what they went for because they went for it. They probably would have been a little people would have been way more even killed if they shot for what they knew they could prove without a reasonable doubt and just went for it and went on with their business. But look, these guys already have their mind made up. They had their mind made up long ago. There's only one option that they have. It has to be, full-blown maximum sentence, whatever it is, in which they will finally say that, okay, maybe they won't go as crazy. But that's the only option. And y'all need to, I think everybody understands for the most part that it doesn't matter as more evidence comes out or whether it be with their failure of the prosecution being able to prove something, that's not even going to matter. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's cared about that in the past. It's okay. He has already been condemned. He's lost. They saw it on tape. They think how many blue check marks have said that, though it's obviously a little more complex than that. They say, oh, well, we saw him on tape. Why are we even having a trial? It's like, yeah. Okay, it's a little more to it. And that's a little. Thankfully, you're not a judge or anything like that. But nonetheless, you have to be prepared for it. I think she is fooling herself if she thinks that people don't understand this. But this is also why, even since then, you've seen the gun ownership in this country among all races have skyrocketed up, you know, for that reason. I don't think just necessarily with this, but people are understanding the importance of protecting themselves. So it's gonna be interesting. I will say this, and I on this note, that if it does not stick and these guys choose to go crazy, I don't know how it's gonna play out in them acting crazy, but are we gonna see just a tad more resistance from individual, whether it be with the businesses, definitely these smaller business owners, than what we saw before? That's what I'm interested to see play out.
It will be interesting to see that, Elijah, because we had these groups who burned down cities over the summer. They seemingly with no repercussions, right? There's no consequences, so why would they stop?
Well, did you see in the new PPP, the disaster loan that came from the government, one of the qualifications for getting the new disaster loans from COVID says to help repair damage done to your business during 2020 unrest in the country that's uninsured. So they added a clause, actually.
Really?
Finally, the federal government finally acknowledged the government's responsibility. I believe it is their responsibility. This is the one time that I'm okay with some of my tax dollars going to help some small businesses.
I'm not.
Well,
the reason why, because it won't stop. It won't stop. If they keep funding it, it won't stop.
Take it from Nancy Pelosi's pocket.
Yeah. But I am, because I think that more people are going to be actually out in front of their shops now, realizing that if it took a year to get that money to repair their shops, I believe that these people are going to be out there defending, because they realize the police are not coming to help you. The government is not going to help you. At least they're not going to bail you out, right? You're going to get a $4,000 check 1 year later in the mail for $25,000 worth of looted goods. And, you know, we're in this position in a country where they are threatening violence already if this happens. Every journalist I know, every reporter has a bag ready to hit every major city, because we know they're coming for Dallas, they're coming for Los Angeles, they're coming for New York. Like, they're on edge. Police departments, I have people on the inside talk about knowing this stuff is supposed to happen. That's why they say they're actually even keeping the barriers around DC, is because of the Chauvin trial. But here's where the media is playing its part in this, is if you look at MSNBC, they created a special graphic for this trial that has George Floyd as a mural, like looking like he's a god, and it's like the George Floyd Chauvin trial, and it makes George Floyd look like a saint. And you know what the media is pushing? They're already pushing through imagery and through rhetoric that he's an innocent man, a black man gunned down by an evil racist cop. And they know with the charges and the imagery that if Chauvin's off the hook, the cities are going to burn. I just hope Dallas or places like this are smart enough ahead of time to lock that SHIT down now.
Do you know yet if you're going to be, are you going to be there?
Oh, I will be somewhere. I can't tell you where I would be.
Oh. Okay.
Because I wouldn't want the people to know where I was. But I'll be somewhere in the country.
Which, by the way, I'm upset that the FBI never came and apprehended you on my show.
Yeah, I wasn't a grandma.
I mean, I guess they put
the resources into arresting grandmas who took tours of the rotunda, and they were like, that guy wasn't in the rotunda, and so like you had to officially have no threat to the union to be held without bail and tortured in prison, and so I was like, I wasn't harmless enough. So. Well,
congrats on that.
Cheers. Yeah.
I think. All right, we got to take a break. Back in a minute.
It's true though, they're too busy arresting grandmas. Like dogs.
All right, don't forget to go wherever you get your audio podcasts. I know there's a lot of you. Yeah, I'm talking to you, watching on YouTube or Facebook or even BlazeTV. If you are watching this program, you're not listening to it, means you probably have not gone to wherever you get your audio podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review the news and why it matters. Give us a nice review, all right? Because we're nice people. And you also might get to see your review read live on air, because I know that's why you guys do it. You don't do it for us, okay? You do it so that you can read your own reviews, but that's okay. I will indulge you. Here is NJ and Not Loving It. Great show, 5 stars. I enjoyed the show before Sarah dropped the F-bomb. Then I became a super fan.
Nice.
Great show that keeps you informed. Yeah, I got in trouble for that one. I can't do it again. The Truth DJ says, I love listening to and watching this show. All your guests are great and I love them. There's 3 exclamation points, so you know that the Truth DJ is serious about that. Thank you for helping me to wake up to the horrible things really going on today. Keep up the good work. Again, 3 exclamation points.
Thanks for helping me see all the horrible things. You're welcome, from Sarah.
Keep up the good work, making us all feel horrible about what's going on. But you know what? At least we can do it with a smile. At least we can joke about it and not take ourselves too seriously, unlike the mainstream media. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure to get your review in if you have not yet already. By the way, if you have not yet subscribed to Slightly Offensive with Elijah Schaffer, make sure you do that on YouTube as well. Also, Young Repa 59, subscribe to him. You can catch his 13-hour like marathon. I don't know how this guy does it. Like
his CNN telecast or whatever.
Like, what are you doing?
Everything.
That's so long.
Video games.
Oh my gosh.